Is it time to finally activate my wildcard going into game week 7? That is the big question in today's video, and we have a lot of hot topics to discuss. So as always, if you're looking forward to it, make sure to drop a like and of course smash that subscribe button for daily fantasy content. And enough waffling, let's get into today's video. So here's how my team is currently looking going into game week 7, and I only have one free transfer and 0 in the bank. This team is at full capacity, and we have issues with this team. So game week 6 actually wasn't terrible, even though it was a red arrow. Apart from Cole Palmer's effective ownership, basically given a red arrow, it was actually a good game week. So I'm asking myself going into game week 7, can this team get by without a wild card? And that's exactly what we need to decide in today's video. So just going from top to bottom with this team, because I think we both need this as a bit of therapy, whether this team needs it. Henderson in goal. Of course, in game week 7, there are better goalkeepers out there, but does it require a wild card just for the goalkeeper? The answer is going to be no. When we take a look at the defenders, I spoke about game week 6. I ended up going for double Liverpool defence as opposed to Arsenal coverage. And if it wasn't for that Kanate malfunction halfway through the second half, it actually would have been an incredible game week for my team. And going into this fixture away against Crystal Palace, who have been struggling themselves, and Liverpool defensively, apart from that Kanate moment, have actually been looking pretty good. And both Robertson and Trent always offer attacking potential. I don't actually think I need to rip up my team right now to get rid of both of these players to pivot towards an Arsenal defender. Yes, I would rather have Gabriel, but does it actually require a wildcard to get rid of either of these two, who both came off early in their Champions League fixtures and are 100% fit for the weekend? I think the answer is going to be no. And with Rico Lewis, of course, a transfer that I brought in game week 6 as I felt long-term this was a great pick. But of course, we always have those doubts about his minutes. But a transfer that I've just brought in game week 6, do I want to wildcard him straight back out? Again, the answer is going to be no. He wouldn't be in a wildcard team, and I will show you a team in a minute, but not enough for me to activate the wildcard. The big problems are going to come in the midfield. Now, of course, Bukayo Saka right now is a fantastic option, and I would have him in a wildcard team most likely. But the other 4 picks are a problem, and that probably is enough in itself to activate the wildcard. Diogo Jota away against Crystal Palace. I think the fixture's okay, but his game time is a slight doubt. Play 30 minutes in the Champions League. We have no idea what that is going to equate to. Does that mean benching, or does that mean he is starting? The good news is that Liverpool are the early kickoff on Saturday, and over the last 6 game weeks, we have had early team news pretty consistently. So I'm quite confident we are going to get the news whether Diogo Jota is starting or not. And I really do feel like right now this team is in a position where if we were to hear that Diogo Jota is benched, the wildcard probably will get activated. I think this team is that close to a wildcard because Rodgers played another 90 minutes on the midweek against Bayern Munich. Because it's a tough game against Man United, I'm just going to make the assumption that he will start once again. I just think he's in great form and he's an integral part of this Aston Villa team. Eze at home against Liverpool, again, not a great fixture. I'd much rather that be Bryan Mbeumo. And at home against my 2 defenders, not great. And then Smith Rowe away against Man City, once again, not a great pick. In terms of the front 2, more than happy with them. I know managers have Solanke, I know they have Kai Havertz, but really, Ollie Watkins at home against Man United, that is a fantastic fixture. I'm more than happy to have him as a differential once again. And Erling Haaland at home against Fulham. So the real problem with this team right now, of course, is if we get news that a certain player is either injured or benched, I think that is going to have to force my hand to wildcard because this bench here isn't helping nobody this week. The only reason why I'm not activating my wildcard right now is just because I think if I can get through this game week 7, the team then starts to look actually quite good going forward. And it also means that I can hold on to some differentials that I really still think offer fantastic FPL value. So what we need to do now is take a look at a wildcard draft of what I would most likely go towards and then decide, is this wildcard team just obviously the play that we should go for? So if the worst was to happen and the wildcard needed to be activated in game week 7, the one reason again why I wouldn't want to do it is because we have the international break between game weeks 7 and 8. And while usually it is a little bit of a myth, not many things do happen in international break, we have seen things happen, like Odegaard, for example, get injured. So players do get injured over these periods. And I personally don't like activating the wildcard before a 2-week break for these sort of players. It just opens up those possibilities happening even more. But If I was to wildcard, it would look something like this. Of course, there are many different variations, and I will touch on one after this in a minute, because there is one certain player missing who scored 4 goals in game week 6. But just to run through this team and a little bit of reasoning behind it, it's worth noting, I do not have a lot of team value. There are going to be managers out there with maybe 1 million more available. So that is why I'm a little bit restricted in certain areas. Flecking between the sticks, Arsenal defensively are just obviously the play, but I also want to chase a little bit of the upside in game week 7. So Flecken for the long term alongside Fabianski. There's just no 4 million goalkeepers really out there. In terms of the defenders, I still think we need a piece of the Arsenal defence. So we've gone for Gabriel, and I've also gone for the premium of Vardial. I love Rico Lewis. I think he's a fantastic option, but I think there is still that doubt about his rotation. And if I was to wildcard in game week 7, I would just minimise the risk and I would bring in Vardial, who also offers some attacking potential like we saw in game week 6. Then, because of my budget, it would have to be a load of cheap enabling defenders. Right now, we've got Van de Ven because the long-term Spurs fixtures are good, and I actually don't mind Spurs defensively. I think Ange does actually cause his own problems for this team, but I think while Van de Ven and Romero are fit, at home, I always fancy them for at least the potential of a clean sheet. And then Aït-Nouri at 4.4 million. I think this guy is going to emerge as a decent option long-term. That could go down to someone like a Mikalenko, but the recent news of Jared Branthwaite potentially having another injury is slightly moving me away from Everton. And then we've just gone for Greaves as a 4 million defender of choice. There aren't really many fantastic 4 millions around. Now, moving into the midfielders, this is where the big conundrum is going to be for those wildcarding in game week 7. Right now, I've only got Bukayo Saka as the premium, and then we've got a bunch of mid-price midfielders. Now, Rodgers at 5.2, I still think I've owned him from day one, is the best cheap enabling midfielder as long as he's continuing in this Aston Villa team. Then, of course, we've got 3 players between 7.5 down to 6.5. And that is going to include Mbeumo at 7.4 million, who I just think is an obvious pick right now. Brennan Johnson is my pick of the Spurs midfielders. He is the goal threat in that team and also a really great price, $1 million cheaper than Maddison. I would much rather go for Brennan Johnson than Maddison right now. And we know Spurs fixtures are good long term. But Johnson would be the pick of the bunch. And then a bit of a differential in Jared Bowen. Now, this is the real wild card in this team because this could be anybody. But with the rank where it's at right now, if I was to wildcard with Ipswich at home, I actually think Jared Bowen's a fantastic differential this week. And I wouldn't be against maybe having him in the team. In terms of the forward line, Haaland for me is just an obvious pick. I'll be scared to go without him. Kai Havertz. Now, again, if we want to save money, we go down to someone like a Dominic Solanke, but I think the Southampton game is the money fixture. And I feel like I'd want to have a piece of that double Arsenal attack. So going for Kai Havertz with the intention of maybe going down to someone like a Solanke in a couple of game weeks' time. Again, we could just go Solanke if we didn't want to have that future transfer in the team. And then Calvert-Lewin at 6 million, I still think possesses brilliant FPL value, and I think long-term the fixtures are great for Everton, even if there are going to be injury concerns with the like of Jared Branthwaite. So this is the sort of wildcard team that I would go for. No Cole Palmer. I think Cole Palmer is a sensational pick. There is no denying that whatsoever. But for me to go for Cole Palmer, I just don't have the value built up in players to go for a Saka, Palmer, Haaland combination. So I'd actually have to then sacrifice someone like a Bukayo Saka, which I'm just not willing to do at home against Southampton. So it might be a mistake if we go down this route, but I would actually avoid Cole Palmer controversially. I would love him, but I just can't find an easy way to get him into the team. So I'll put up here a screenshot of the transfers out of my team and the ones that would come in. And let me know in the comment section, do you think this is worthwhile of a wildcard? I definitely think it is one that I'm considering, and as I mentioned, the injuries and rotation risk are going to massively dictate whether I do wildcard. But when I do look at this team, I really do like it. There's no denying that. But I also think my team that I currently have possess great differentials in the shape of double Liverpool defence and also the midfield picks and Ollie Watkins up top. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Let's get into this team selection. So moving into my Game Week 7 team selection, and as I said, this is with the assumption that I don't wildcard. That will be a Saturday morning decision with those potential Liverpool team leaks. But if we don't activate the wildcard, I do not see any reason to use a transfer on both the goalkeeper and the defenders. Henderson at home against Liverpool is not ideal at all, especially when I own a Liverpool attacker. But it's just one of those weeks. You're not always going to have a great goalkeeper with a great fixture. And in these fixtures, all you can hope for is save points and maybe the odd bonus point if he was to do a madness in a game. But Henderson being sold just isn't one of my priorities this week. And in terms of the defenders, double Liverpool defence. I had said about this in game week 6. It was a huge differential that nearly paid off. These both have the potential for clean sheets and also attack and returns. Robertson easily could have had a double-digit return in game week 6 if Szoboszlai didn't miss from 2 yards out. And Crystal Palace defensively have not been all that, and offensively they are still struggling. So Liverpool double defence, I'm happy to roll with it for one more game week. And people selling Trent, the only way that will do it, and it is a possibility in my team, is to actually use the money to upgrade a player in a certain position. And that would really have to improve the team in order for me to sell Trent. And Rico Lewis, again, a player that I brought in game week 6. I'm not going to be selling him. I knew the risks that I was getting bringing him in. He was always going to be doubts. Playing significant minutes in the Champions League isn't ideal. But he's playing so well right now. I would just like to think that Pep needs to squeeze him in the team, whether it be at right back or in centre mid areas. Of course, if we get the news, it'll be early team news that Rico Lewis is benched. That definitely would force the wild card. But right now, no need for transfers in the goalkeeper or defensive areas. So moving into my game week 7 midfielders. And as I spoke about at the start of the video, there are plenty of problems with this team. So what do you do when you have problems? You do nothing. That's exactly what I'm currently planning with this team. The issue is game week 7 is the one that I really do think could hurt me. Spoke about the players that I don't own. Brian Mbeumo, for example, Cole Palmer, even the Liverpool midfielder that might play over someone like a Diogo Jota. This feels like the week that really could be painful. But as I mentioned, for me, if Diogo Jota is confirmed to be on the bench, alongside something like an injury, we're activating the wildcard regardless, because this team cannot survive one more week with those concerns. But if I am going to go down the premise that I actually think all these players play, Eze at home against Liverpool, not great. Smith Rowe away against Man City, not great. But because I have 0 in the bank, I can't really pivot this team to any sort of direction. As I mentioned, if Diogo Jota is benched, I could do Jota to Mbeumo, but it doesn't fix the Smith Rowe problem in my team. I could do Smith Rowe down to a McNeil, but again, do I want McNeil long term? Personally, not. So there are things that we can do, and I will show you some solutions in a minute if we were to go down this route. But right now, I feel like it's either wildcard or roll the transfer. I don't think I can make a transfer in this team that improves it, that long term I'm going to be happy with. So for that reason, I'm not looking to do any moves in my midfield. Let me know your thoughts. Is it crazy? Was it genius? Probably crazy. So of course, if I'm not going to make any transfers in the midfield area, I definitely am not going to do it in the forward department. Or am I? That is the big question, because Watkins and Haaland are going nowhere. But there is a certain Muniz on the bench who is stinking up the team right now. I believe he had another price fall last night, which is not ideal. So Muniz actually coming out for someone like a Jamie Vardy is on the cards, or a Delap. Because what that would do with this team is get rid of a deadwood player. As I spoke about, with the midfielders, the reason why I'm reluctant to sell one of those is because they're still playing players who offer decent FPL value long term. Muniz is a perfect example of a player that is complete deadwood in the team, but also taking up a decent amount of the money of this budget, where I can't really allow it just to rot on the bench each and every game week. He isn't a 4 million defender, for example, like Barco. So one thing that I could do, and I'm going to show you this team in a minute, is pivot the team slightly and use one of my free transfers to sell Muniz to bring in a cheaper forward in the shape of Jamie Vardy or Delap. And what that would allow me to do is then bring Smith Rowe onto the bench and play 3 players up top. But as of right now, as I mentioned, I'm still looking to roll the transfer, because I really do feel like it's either roll the transfer or wildcard. I think I'm very much in that mindset. So that's the team. Let me know your thoughts. Let's touch on captaincy and then a few different variations that I could do with this team outside of the wildcard. So in terms of captaincy for game week 7, I really think for my team, it's close between Bukayo Saka and Erling Haaland. Of course, I don't have Cole Palmer, so I don't have that headache, but I do think he's also a brilliant option. I am a little bit conscious though that I think Forest could do a better job of shutting out Chelsea than that of Brighton. So I would be a little bit cautious about Cole Palmer's potential in that game. But in terms of the team for me, it's Haaland for captaincy. I would love to put it on Ollie Watkins, I can't lie, after what I've seen from Man United, but Haaland for me just feels like the right captaincy. I think Arsenal could score more goals, it's worth noting, against Southampton, but we always talk about it. It's where those goals are going to be scored from. It could be from Gabriel, it could be from any winger, it could be from Havertz. With Man City, I feel like if they are going to score goals, it is going to be through Erling Haaland, and I just feel more confident putting the captaincy on him going into game week 7. So no real questions for me. Haaland with the captaincy. This is how the team is going to look, based on what we spoke about with no injury concerns or potential early team leaks. But what I want to quickly show you is some different variations of this team depending on what we hear. So as you can tell in this video, game week 7 could be anything from rolling my transfer, taking a -4 or activating the wildcard. My hands are tied. I am completely at the mercy of this potential team news and just general rotation risk in the team. So what I want to show you right now is a few different variations with the squad. So firstly, if we get no news and I just assume that everybody is going to play, but on Saturday morning I asked myself, I just don't think I can go with this team. The one transfer that I think I will make is selling Muniz to just improve the general balance of the team. Now, of course, in terms of fixtures right now, I think the only options at 5.5 million who are less than Muniz is going to be Ipswich's Delap, who is away against West Ham, but good long-term fixtures, and Leicester's Jamie Vardy. Now, I'm going to put it out there. I really do not like Jamie Vardy as a pick, but does he offer potential attacking returns? Yes. And does he have great fixtures? Yes. So I would lean towards going for Jamie Vardy, and this is how the team would look. And really, I don't think that then starts to look that bad. I think the Smith Rowe away against Man City just looks terrible on paper, but would I be surprised if Man City conceded? Probably not. So if I was to make one free transfer, it probably would be that. I know someone like a Bryan Mbeumo makes a lot of sense, but with my team, just doing Jota to Mbeumo just doesn't really improve the team. Now, if we then, of course, let me reset the team, get the news that Diogo Jota is benched, he is, of course, going to be a major concern for my team. So selling Jota for Bryan Mbeumo then does make a lot of sense for the team. That is the only way that I think I will make this move and stick with this team. I don't love it, but then do I think this team requires a -4? Because all it will have is 0.1 million in the bank. So I can't really get to any other player. So the only way I think Mbeumo comes into my team at the expense of Jota is if we get clarification that Jota is benched. Then I will make that move, bring Mbeumo in and just accept that Smith Rowe is playing away against Man City, and that will be the team. So those are the first two situations. No news, maybe do a Muniz to Vardy to improve the balance. Jota bench, I will bring in Bryan Mbeumo. Now, I've got a few notes here because there's a lot of different variations that we can go towards. The next one, and this one's a little bit controversial, but maybe does improve my team overall, and that is getting rid of Trent. I don't love this at all, but of course, being one of the few managers out there that does have double Liverpool defence, I also still have some coverage in that Liverpool team, and Robertson's actually offering decent underlying numbers. So what that would mean is selling someone like Trent to Vardy out. Now, one thing that I don't like, it does block me out of bringing someone like a Phil Foden in, but remember, I do have my wild card available still, so I could easily pivot my team if Phil Foden suddenly looks like the go-to pick. The only reason I would make this move is to try and improve this midfield. That is the only reason I would do it. So there's two different variations we could go here. The first one is upgrading Smith Rowe and bringing in Brennan Johnson for more of a long-term perspective. And the team would look something like this, which, again, is slightly improved, but of course is at the expense of a -4. The only reason why I'm deliberating getting rid of Trent is just because after game week 7, there are a couple of difficult fixtures, but then I look at 10 and 11 and think they're also games that I could see him hauling in because those teams just don't keep clean sheets. So that's one variation that we could look towards. Trent to Vardy out and then Smith Rowe to Brennan Johnson. The other variation that we could look to do is that we don't actually get rid of Smith Rowe. He retains his spot in the team. But what we do look to do is actually get rid of Eze. Now, Eze is a very difficult player to judge right now because this week is not great. His numbers haven't been fantastic over the last couple of weeks. But after game week 7, I actually think there are some really good fixtures for him long term. It's just painful owning him right now with those returns not coming because it has been a torrid time owning someone like an Eze. So if I was to then sell him, it would be 100% to bring in Bryan Mbeumo, which would also leave me 0.5 million in the bank for a longer term perspective. The only problem with this move, it still means that I play Smith Rowe. And for that reason, I think if I am going to take a -4 at all with this team, then it will be selling Trent to bring in Vardy, and then getting rid of Smith Rowe and bringing in Johnson as more of a longer term play. I don't think selling Eze to Mbeumo improves my team for that week, especially for a -4. So those are basically the 3 different variations. Muniz to Vardy if we get no news and I feel like my team is weak going into this game week. The second variation is that if Jota's benched, doing Jota to Mbeumo and just accepting the team. But the aggressive play would be selling Trent for Vardy and then doing Smith Rowe to Brennan Johnson as part of a -4. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. But as you can tell, there are many different routes I could go down this week. Yes, guys, okay, that is going to wrap up today's Game Week 7 team selection video. Let me know what transfers you are making in the comments section. As you can tell, I have many different headaches with my team. So if you're following along with my team, and I probably wouldn't recommend it, make sure you stick around for tomorrow's deadline live stream, as I will be obviously revealing exactly what I'll be doing then, because we'll have all of the information then. So make sure you do subscribe to the channel. It always means the world if you can. And of course, if you enjoyed today's video, drop a like. Have an amazing day. Take care. Any questions, put them in the comments section, and I'll see you real soon. Take care. Cheers.